welcome the president of the board of the Santa Barbara International Film Festival, Doug Stone.
I'll get to this. So it's night 7 of the 28th annual Santa Barbara International Film Festival, presented by lynda.com. To get things going, it is my pleasure to introduce John Horn. John is a staff writer with the Los Angeles Times, writing on film. It's my pleasure to introduce John Horn.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming. I'm going to go very quickly here because I think we want to hear Quentin and see some clips. Throughout this conversation, we'll be looking at clips from Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, Jackie Brown, Kill Bill Volumes 1 and 2, Death Proof, Inglourious Bastards, and Django Unchained. But we're going to start first with a montage of the work of Quentin Tarantino.
Ladies and gentlemen, Quentin Tarantino.
Thank you very much. Great reception.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, by the way, thanks everybody for coming out. I actually didn't realize this was such a big deal, and so I'm actually rather taken aback by all this goodwill and love. Thank you very much.
We got a lot of stuff to look at. I want to start first. We're going to talk about writing tonight. We're talking about Quentin's screenwriting. You come at screenwriting as an actor first, not as a screenwriter. And I'm curious what that brings in terms of your writing. What does that mean to be an actor who's writing? And do you write something that you know you're going to hear?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's funny, I never took any writing classes, but I did take acting classes. And one of the things is, even to this day, most of the adjectives I use during the writing process are adjectives actors would use, trying to get into character, or taking it where everything goes. You know, it's like the actors that I really like are the actors that really invest in their character, invest in the backstory, invest in who that person was before the story started, maybe who that person is after the story's over. And even invest in, okay, the story says they turn left, but what if they turn right? What would happen then? And just because the story says you turn left doesn't mean people have free will. They could actually turn right. And then there's a whole other thing that could happen. And so it's that idea, that thought process when it comes to characters that I think I bring to my writing. Now, by the way, that actually is how most writers write. It might not be how most screenwriters write, and I'm not saying that as like not saying that to put screenwriting itself down. There is a reason why somebody would actually write something and actually want to be finished around page 120 and have an idea where you're going. I kind of like doing it the novelistic way, where I have an idea where I'm going, but it's like when you know how to get to somebody's house, but you don't exactly know the exact directions, but you can kind of find your way on your own, and you trust you'll end up at your friend's house. Well, that's kind of how I like to do it.
Meaning your characters are going to go where they're going to go.
Yeah, I mean, for better or for worse. All right, actually, I actually think doing this now long enough, I actually think if I had more control over the steering wheel, things would get done a little easier and get done a lot better, and maybe even the story might be even a little bit better. And that might very well be the case. However, I don't want to do that. I want to create these characters, and I'm helping them out in the first half of the story. But if I'm doing it the way I want to do it, the way I think I should be doing it, they need to be taking it over by mid-story, and then I'm just following them.
So how do you turn off the director in you who's watching these characters go in that direction? Is like, that's an interesting direction. I can't film that, or I don't want you to go that way.
I don't do this that much anymore, but before I would actually follow them down that rabbit hole. I would just, go down with them, and I would write this really stuff I thought was really terrific, but ultimately it's not what I wanted to spend a year of my life making. But it happened, and I was informed by it, and I learned something from it, and it was cool, and rarely can you take it and cannibalize it and put it in stuff that works, but it was still an interesting process to go through. That happened a lot with Kill Bill, because I wasn't in any hurry of finishing it. I just really wanted to have the experience of going through the bride's experience. And, I have gone down that way. Now I'm a little bit more, no, that's not the most interesting way. I'm gonna stop them. But actually, I don't have to. I don't really have to do that. I haven't had to stop them from going anywhere that I thought was just completely a fool's errand.
When you're writing a scene, I mean, we looked at these clips. There's there's a precision of the dialogue, but there's also a precision of the imagery. And when you're writing, are you picturing how that scene's going to look, or are you listening to how it's going to sound?
Well, it's really funny. When you ask me a question like that, and that's a really good question, but when I give an answer that almost makes it say like, well, this is how it is. Well, it's a mix of both. It's a mix of both. I mean, when I'm writing, I'm trying not to. The director's not really there. He is there. And he is there for, like, I come up with some idea of some maybe cool cinematic set piece or something I could do, particularly in an action set piece moment. The director's there a little bit. But even under that circumstances, I'm still a writer trying to make a good page. I'm still just trying to, I'm trying to put the words together in a way that's both clever and talented, and it works like literature. It doesn't work like, it can be bad literature, but it works like literature. It's not just a blueprint of what's supposed to happen. And that's what really I'm about when I'm writing. I'm about expressing myself artistically as if this were the only thing that I was ever going to do, as if there was never going to make a movie from it. I'm going to write this, and maybe when I'm done, I won't make it. Maybe I'll just publish it, and that'll be enough. And I actually, if I give everything I'm supposed to give to my scripts, that should be my feeling when I'm finished. You know what? I love this. It's mine to fuck up.
When that director guy takes it over.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he can fuck it up. I mean, this is tough shit. I don't even know how I'm going to do some of this shit. I always want to write some stuff that I don't have a fucking clue how I'm going to do it. And then part of the process is figuring it out, and maybe I don't know at the very beginning, but I figure it out at some point from doing it, and that makes me a better filmmaker. But I don't feel that way when I finish writing the script. I'm like, wow, I love these pages. I think I could just publish this, and then I'm done, and I'm finished. And that's how I think I should feel. But I mean, even insofar as just even trying the way I would try to make the image right, the way I would try to make the frame right, and interesting and evocative. As I'm shooting, that's how I'm trying to make the page look. I'm trying to make it look pretty. I'm trying to make it look together. I'm trying to have one word take you to one line, take you to the next line, which is what most great writers do. If you look at most great writers, and even decent, talented writers, it's not just that their words are evocative, the page looks pretty. The page is inviting. The page makes you want to read it. And that's what I want. That's where I'm at that time period. Now, that doesn't mean that I didn't come up with the idea of the red blood splashing the white cotton balls when I was writing. I did. I wrote, insert, red blood splashing white cotton balls. And I was like, wow, I've never seen that before. That will be really cool. That's a really good image. I lucked out on that one. And I do that, and I come up with set pieces. But for the most part, it really is during that process, it's the writer is in charge and the director he's doing something else.
And the director later will say, what in the name of God is this writer done?
The director kind of ignores the writer. The director kind of ignores the writer. I'm not constantly rereading my script and everything. I literally only have whatever sides are next to me.
What do you, how do you know when a scene, I mean, you talk about a page. How do you know that, do you work page at a time, paragraph at a time? How do you know when something's working, in other words? Are you able to compartmentalize scene by scene, character by character, or do you do it incrementally?
No, I always have to go, scene 1 takes me to scene 2, scene 2 takes me to scene 3, scene 133 takes me to scene 134. I can't hop around.
So you're not one of those screenwriters who puts everything on a board and
No.
starts moving the Post-it notes around in order to make them fit.
Yeah, and I can't just jump to the stuff I want to write, or I'll never write the stuff I don't want to write. I have to get to there. And oftentimes by the time you get to there, you don't want to write it so much anymore. It's actually it's an idea that has actually proven itself past its time. Yeah, you wanted to do it way back when, but now you're here, not so important. So it's like, I always have to kind of keep moving forward. That's why, I can definitely come up for the most part of what's supposed to happen, like I said, and it's one of the things I have learned about myself. I have a pretty good idea what's going to happen in the first half of the story. Now, I have a really good idea what's going to happen in the second half of the story. In the second half of Kill Bill, I kind of figured she might kill Bill at the end, all right? But the way it happened was much different than I thought about, even, forget about before I started writing, but even after like a few months into writing, it became quite different by the time I got to that point in the story. But I actually do think that, again, if you're trying to just breathe these characters to life and have them take over, well then the middle of the story would be about as much as you could know before you've actually breathed life into them. Once they take over, it becomes a different thing. You shouldn't be able to know that much from that point on. Now, having said that, I actually work in genre. So there is a bit of a roadmap, because if I'm doing a Western, if I'm doing a World War II movie, if I'm doing a martial art movie, I don't want it to be an art film meditation on that. I want it to actually deliver the goods. If you like martial art films, I want you to watch Kill Bill and see a really terrific martial art film. Now, frankly, I want it to be more than that, but as far as delivering the goods for the given genre, that has to happen. And that kind of helps you out. That kind of keeps you on track a little bit.
But you talk about writing almost more like a novelist would in chapters as opposed to a screenwriter traditionally in acts. Do you break it down that way for yourself?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, I could write everything in chapters, all right? I like them. I think they're a lot of fun. And I think they're cinematic. Like a lot of the things that, I remember reading, before you ever make a movie, it's impossible to read now I can read a book and not make it into a movie, but before I'd made a movie, it was impossible to read a book and not make it into a movie in your head. And I found myself wanting to keep most of the literary devices the author had come up with, not just because I was trying to be faithful to them, but I thought with cross-cutting, that could actually be one of the more cinematic ways to present the material. And usually that's exactly what they get rid of when they would do the movie versions. They would take all this jumbled narrative and make it chronological, and boom. And that's why when people, said, in particular in the first couple of films, oh wow, you really monkeyed around with the structure. I go, well, actually, I kind of use a literary structure, to tell my story. That's not really monkeying around with it.
How do you know when a scene is working, or do you know when it's not working? Does the negative prove the positive, in other words? When you're working on a scene and you're fighting it and you're trying to get it right, how do you know when it's working, or is it just because it doesn't stop failing?
Oh yeah, well, when it's not working, it's pretty easy, all right, because it's just, for lack of a better word, your rucksack going up that hill is a lot heavier, and you're actually really working. And usually that means I should stop that day, that I'm not into it, I'm not there, or maybe I need to think about this whole thing because this is obviously not the right way to go. If it's that hard, if you're in writing mode, it shouldn't be that hard. Writing is some of the funnest times I ever have. It's actually hard enough when everything's flowing, though, at the same time. So if it's that difficult, then conceivably, maybe, the mojo ain't with you right now, you're not connected, you should maybe do something else and pick it up again tomorrow. When it's working, it's a lot easier because it's working. You're inspired. Character A says this, then character B says that, and character C says that, and all of a sudden, and character C just told you something you didn't know. And now you have to work from that. If either the characters in the scene have to work from that new information, but now you're also having to work from that new information. Now, I can tend to go long when I do that. And so I have to be really aware of okay, is this holding up? Can this be this long? And I mean, hands down, there's no example to the extent that the basement sequence.
Right, the opening scene.
Yeah, well, not the opening scene.
I'm sorry. Okay.
The opening
that's
scene.
true.
The opening scene held. I never had a
scene.
question.
Okay.
It might be too long for other people, but it definitely wasn't too long for me.
The basement scene.
But the basement scene in *Inglourious Basterds*, deep in the movie.
Yes.
I mean, deep in the fucking movie, and there's no Aldo, there's no Shoshana, there's nobody you know. A bunch of motherfuckers you just met.
Right.
And now all of a sudden they're in a 40-minute scene. That's supposed to be suspenseful.
It absolutely is.
In a different language for an American movie. And, it was never my intention for that to be that long. I just started writing it, and it kept holding. It kept holding, they kept talking, I kept keeping the reality of the situation, of they could be exposed at any moment. I'd almost expose them, that it seemed like they got away with it, then something else would happen. And the thing is, if you think it's long when you look at it, imagine when I'm writing it. Because I guarantee you it's longer in my script version, all right, after I got through editing it, all right, it's actually longer. But not only is it longer, I'm writing it by hand, so every 2 pages every 2 handwritten pages is one script writing page. So the stack is getting crazy high. And my page number is not 40 pages, it's 80 pages in handwritten script. And I'm like, holy fucking shit. And then I'd go over it again and I like it. I think it holds, and dare I say, I think it makes it more suspenseful. I think the longer I can stretch this rubber band out and actually feel that there's more rubber there to give, the more suspenseful it will be. Now, once the script's finished and I put it all together, then I'm not really worried about it anymore. I figure it's worked. But when I'm writing it and it's getting to be that much, and like I said, never seems like 40 to me. It seems like 80 pages to me. But I trust myself.
Why do you write in longhand?
I can't write poetry on a computer, mate.
When you first start writing, is it a character that you hear? Is it a genre that's calling to you? Is it a story within a genre? What is the genesis generally? And it may vary from movie to movie, but does it tend to be the same thing, or is it a combination of those elements coalescing at one time?
Yeah, it's a combination. Yeah, it definitely is a combination. It's like there's a genre, maybe I've always been curious in throwing my hat in the ring, but I'm not going to do that until I come up with an interesting enough story to set it apart. And that story is usually connected to a character. Django is connected to Django. It cannot not be. The Inglourious Basterds are connected to the Bastards. They're connected to Shoshana. I came up with all of them equally. I came up with Londa. I came up with all of them at the same time that I came up with the story, in own roundabout way, but nevertheless. So yeah, I came up with. Even Kill Bill, that's equally coming up with the bride, as I am coming up with the story. So it is, it is. I want to work in this genre. Here's an interesting story that can work in this genre, that I can explore it, hopefully transcend it, And then here are these characters that I care enough about that I want to explore.
Is it occasionally the case that you're trying to put characters or a story in a genre, and the genre spits them back out, and you have to say, well, maybe they're better suited for a different genre?
No, I've written characters that didn't make the final cut, or didn't even make the final cut as far as like even a version of the script that anyone saw. Maybe I invested in a little bit of them and I just got rid of them. And they might be able to be cannibalized and used into something else, or just wholeheartedly used into something else. But no, not the way you were describing.
I think we're going to show the first block of clips, so let's look at this clip package and we'll come back to our conversation.
Wow, that was really nice, everybody. Thank you.
I trust nobody brought
Shots.
young children here, because if they did, there's going to be some new vocabulary in their grammar when they come back. I'd now like to hand it over to Roger Durling, the Executive Director of the Santa Barbara International Film Festival.
Hi there, and I need to acknowledge John Horn for his wonderful job tonight.
Great job.
You know, the American Riviera Award was instituted 10 years ago under my tenure, to celebrate an American artist who changed the landscape of cinema. And last year we honored the American Riviera Award, we honored Martin Scorsese. And all year I was like obsessing about who could follow up Martin Scorsese in this award, and the fact that Quentin Tarantino is here in the house is just outrageous. Quentin Tarantino is, in my book, a rock star. He's badass. He's a true icon in modern cinema, and the only filmmaker since Alfred Hitchcock who has made his persona as much a brand as his film. My love of Tarantino lies in his writing ability. I just think he's so fucking good at it. For me, listening to Tarantino characters speak is like listening to music. Pulp Fiction, Inglourious Basterds, Django absolutely blew me away because of the screenplay. No other filmmaker has been as bold with cinematic language as that man in that corner and with his movies. I love Tarantino's attitude. He doesn't give a He doesn't give a fuck, and he shouldn't. His works speaks loud and clear. He doesn't make action films or westerns or war films or period pieces. He makes Tarantino movies. Generous to all of his fans, and with his middle finger to all his would-be critics. I love the just don't give a fuck attitude that comes with Tarantino movies. And even his failures are respectable ones because he's so original in his storytelling. There's never been anyone else like him, and there will never be. Quentin Tarantino's storytelling's audacity and his tendency for hungrily rummaging in cinema's vaults is inspiring because he grabs all of those inspirations from other movies and combines them into his own DNA. He's gifted for sure. He's great at what he does, and his importance as a filmmaker is unparalleled. He can be so flashy, so movie clever, but at the same time he can be so brazenly brutal in ways all of us lovers of pure cinema love. Django, the D is silent, damn it. Django Unchained, his latest, delivers his most audacious scenes to date. The initial meeting of the slave, Django, and bounty hunter Dr. King Schultz in the woods, for starters, but they flow purposefully into a tale of sacrifice and courage, friendship and love that finds the two men embarking on a quest to free Django's wife from a notorious plantation called Candyland. And I played that board game Candyland when I was a kid, and those memories will never be the same. Django Unchained is Tarantino's most complete movie yet. It is also his most vital, raw, most accomplished, most thrilling. His storytelling talents match the ambition of that tale. Slavery is nasty. It's a nasty chapter in America's story, in America's history, and Tarantino has beautifully crafted a story of decency versus evil for a generation that is still grappling with our historical legacy of racism. And this is done, again, uncompromisingly. It's done the way a nonconformist would do it. Much like Inglourious Basterds, Kill Bill, and Pulp Fiction, Django Unchained offer viewers a space to work through some serious payback fantasies. But most of all, Django's storytelling, in its so beautifully crafted screenplay and direction, Tarantino achieves an alarming symmetry and setting in opposition Django, played by Mr. Fox, and Schultz, Christoph Waltz, against Candy, Leo DiCaprio and Steven. They're in a fashion mirror images. The side of a plantation owner and slave is from a house of horrors. And as it turns out, this symmetry and mirror image device is boldly telling us that we are that plantation owner. It's our history and it's our house of horrors. Thank you, Quentin, for being such a visionary. Thanks for being so uncompromising. Thanks for all you've done for all of us who worship you and live waiting patiently for your next work, because we know you're going to challenge us, you're going to thrill us, you're going to rock us. And finally, on a very personal note, I need to say thanks for making being a film geek so fucking cool. I was beat up in high school for loving movies so much and because of my non-stop talking like now about movies. But you have made it okay for all of us film geeks to proudly step out of the shadows of the movie theaters. Not that we want to, especially when your movies are playing, but when we have to step out in the street, we can walk, talk, thanks to you. So please accept the American Riviera Award.
Gosh, I just, thank you. I just have to say, that was, thank you so much for that. That was so lovely, that was so heartfelt, that was magnificent, thank you. I didn't realize there was an award higher than the Kirk Douglas Award. And I've won it, yay! Thank you for this. I have to just say that this has been a wonderful night. It's been wonderful talking about my writing process. It's been really cool to deal with the whole writer-director process and actually talk about it more from the pen aspect than from the camera aspect. That's been really nice. You've all been really nice. Thank you for coming out. And this theater is so beautiful and so lovely. I actually first came here, I actually first came to Santa Barbara the first time because I was learning how to ride horses. And a little past Santa Barbara was my writing teacher. And Daryl Hannah hooked me up with my writing teacher, and Daryl Hannah's from around here, amongst other places. And she actually, we went to downtown Santa Barbara, and she took me to this theater. And we just walked in. She goes, "You see, I gotta see, we have this beautiful theater in Santa Barbara." And we came in, I saw it, it was great. And it killed me that Django Unchained didn't play here. The Hobbit, at 48 frames a second, was playing here, rather than Django in a 35mm print at 24 frames a second was not playing here. But I'm here now. Anyway, I want to thank the Santa Barbara Film Festival, International Film Festival, for doing this. This is an awesome festival. It's so good that you guys have such a cool film festival. Take advantage of it. Get the season passes. See 2, 3 movies a day. Please do that. And when they're shown here, absolutely whatever. What the fuck, all right? Yeah, whatever, all right? If it's shown on film, absolutely, whatever. Watch it. Anyway, thank you for this. But I really do have to say thank you so much for what you just said. It was really, really lovely, and it meant the world to me. Thank you. And thank you, everybody. Thanks for coming out.